Hey folks, it's Miranda again. I'm about to give the 2AC. The order will be the cybersecurity advantage, solvency, and then the terrorism disadvantage. Gotta set my timer. All right, here I go. In the status quo, the NSA is inserting backdoors into the encryption technologies of companies across the United States. These backdoors allow the federal government to conduct surveillance more easily. However, these deliberately placed vulnerabilities can also be exploited by criminals, terrorists, and hackers. Because of this, weakening encryption dramatically increases the odds of a successful cyber attack on critical infrastructure. That's SASO and Doctoro. Cyber attacks outweigh any disadvantage. A. Magnitude. A successful cyber attack on critical infrastructure would take down the power grid for months. Water would be contaminated, trains would be derailed, and over 100 nuclear power plants could experience meltdowns, threatening our survival. The functions of the U.S. military would be devastated, which would invite attack by other nations and embroil us in a war that's Daly, Huff, and Tilford. Independently, strong military readiness prevents war through deterrence. That's Spencer. This means that their disadvantaged impacts won't escalate in a world of the plan. B. Time frame. Cyber attacks are increasing, but it's only a matter of time before a cyber Pearl Harbor. It's not a matter of if, but when. Palmer 13. Systems vital to the everyday operation of our government, economy, and well-being are already under attack. The current state of cyber vulnerability in critical infrastructure makes it not a matter of if a component of critical infrastructure will be taken out, but when. Several such attacks could be chained together in such a way to cause destruction and death on a scale that could paralyze the nation. Now, they say that a golden key solves, but golden key is mathematically impossible, experts agree. Geller 15. Software engineers simply cannot build backdoors that do what the FBI wants without serious security vulnerabilities, owing to the fundamental mathematical nature of cryptography. It is no more possible for the FBI to design a secure backdoor than it is for the National Weather Service to stop a hurricane. No amount of presto changeo is going to change the math. Math is on our side. Now, you should prefer our evidence because their evidence has no explanation for how a golden key would work, and it's also written by the editor of the Washington Post who doesn't have any background in security. You should defer to our experts. Next, they say there are alt causes. But first, even if it's true that a worker shortage makes us vulnerable to cyber attacks, the plan still net increases the nation's cybersecurity, which means it's a good idea. And second, the workforce shortage will solve itself. It's overblown. Halls Act 14. Cybersecurity jobs are difficult to fill, but government entities are focused on ways to close the gap. Educational partnerships, hackathon competitions, corporate training, a regional task force. Rand argues this problem will solve itself. High levels of compensation will be enough to lure workers back into its ranks. Now, they say there's no impact to cyber attacks, but extend our 1AC burger evidence. It's more recent than theirs and cites experts in the field. Syria and other unstable places in the world all make cyber attacks more likely than they've ever been in the past. Last, they say there's no grid collapse, but extend daily. It is possible for cyber attacks to shut down the grid. Our evidence cites Leon Panetta, who's the defense secretary and the ultimate authority on this issue, as well as other cybersecurity experts such as Lewis. Now we can go on to solvency. They just make one argument here that it won't be solvency because the government will circumvent itself, but fiat solves this. Fiat is this concept we have in debate that means we can assume that the affirmative plan passes. Otherwise, we'd always just debate about whether or not the affirmative plan would pass, and the negative would win because the plan obviously hasn't happened yet, or we wouldn't have a debate about it. So therefore, we have to assume that the affirmative does pass, and the negative has to defeat it on its merits, not just whether or not it will pass. It means this argument isn't relevant to the debate. Now, on to the terrorism disadvantage. First, there's no imminent terror threat. Every dire warning has proven wrong. Tim 15. If you turn on the television in the lead up to July 4th, it was almost impossible to miss the coverage blaring ominous warnings. The media's reporting was hyperbolic. When nothing happened, there was no self-reflection. The U.S. government has issued similar terrorism warnings that generated alarming headlines at least 40 times since 9/11. All 40 times, nothing happened. 2. The link is non-unique. The USA Freedom Act curtailed surveillance in June. If the link were true, that should have triggered terrorist attacks. 3. Data overload. Mass surveillance causes terrorism. Data mining overloads systems and trades off with effective strategies. Schneider 15. 3 critical issues make data mining an inappropriate tool for finding terrorists. First is error rates. Finding terrorists requires a much higher degree of accuracy than data mining systems can possibly provide. Terrorist attacks are very rare. This means that even a highly accurate system will be so flooded with false alarms that it will be useless. The intelligence community likens finding a terrorist plot to looking for a needle in a haystack. When you're looking for a needle, the last thing you want to do is pile more hay on. We saw this with NSA's eavesdropping program. The false positives overwhelmed the system. After 9/11, the NSA passed the FBI thousands of tips per month. Every one of them turned out to be false. The second problem is each attack is unique. Each individual who carries out a terrorist attack will have a disproportionate impact on the criteria used to decide who's a likely terrorist, leading to ineffective detection. The third problem is that the people NSA is trying to find are trying to avoid detection. Surveillance wasn't able to prevent the Boston Marathon bombings, even though one of the bombers was on the terrorist watch list and both had sloppy social media trails. Mass surveillance didn't catch the underwear bomber, even though his father warned the government that he was dangerous. And the liquid bombers were captured in 2006, not due to mass surveillance, but through traditional investigative police work. NSA surveillance efforts have made us less secure. 4. No encryption link. Strong encryption doesn't foster terrorism. Schneider 15. Encryption protects us from terrorists, criminals, and every other threat on the internet and against our data and communications. Encryption protects our trade secrets, our financial transactions, medical records, and conversations. In a world where cyber attacks are becoming more common, encryption is one of our most important defenses. Won't terrorists be able to use encryption to protect their secrets? Of course. The benefits of encryption are general and can be enjoyed by both good guys and bad guys. Automobiles benefit long-distance travelers and bank robbers. Telephones benefit relatives and kidnappers. All-you-can-eat buffets benefit hungry students and terrorists plotting their next moves. This is simply reality, and it's okay. Bad guys trip themselves up in so many other ways that allowing them access to automobiles, telephones, and restaurants and encryption isn't enough to make them successful. 5. No internal link. NSA surveillance has never stopped a single attack. Schneider 15. Is there any proof that surveillance has helped to stop terrorist attacks in the past? No. Mass surveillance in the U.S. has never stopped a single attack. On several occasions, the government was asked to justify its methods, and they have failed to ever do so. 6. Data is not key. The government doesn't need more data. It doesn't understand or share the data it already has. Birken et al. 14. A careful review of the key terrorism cases the government has cited to defend NSA bulk surveillance reveals that government officials have exaggerated the role of the NSA. The overall problem for U.S. counterterrorism is not that they need vaster amounts of information, but that they don't sufficiently understand or share the information they already possess. This was true for 9/11 as well as the 2000 terrorist attacks in Mumbai. 7. The terror threat is exaggerated. There have been 0 major attacks since 9/11. 8. No nuclear terrorism impact. There's problems with acquisition, theft, construction, and delivery. Mearsheimer 14. No nuclear armed state is going to supply terrorists with a nuclear weapon because they have no control of how the recipients might use that weapon. Turmoil in a nuclear armed state could in theory allow terrorists to grab a loose nuke, but the U.S. has detailed plans to deal with that. Terrorists might try to build their own bomb, but that scenario is extremely unlikely as well. There are significant obstacles to getting enough material, and even bigger obstacles to building a bomb and then delivering it. Nuclear terrorism is not a serious threat. Once again, I have about 16 seconds left. That's totally fine.